Nigeria is tired of official statements. Nigeria is 100% for action now. So if you've been following closely what Nigeria has been doing here, it's a flurry of activities. Nigeria is taking the lead in the behind the scenes negotiations that are taking place to make sure that developed countries compensate developing countries in terms of loss and damage, the sacrifice that we have to make to reduce emissions as a developing country, whereas the developed countries are the ones that are responsible for polluting the planet by far. So we're very much involved in that. Only this afternoon, Mr. President attended an event where there was a rollout of 100 electric buses for transportation, which is tied to Mr. President's ending of fuel subsidy, petrol subsidy in Nigeria. And then off of the back of that, you will have also the opportunity to benefit from carbon credits, because carbon credits are there to compensate countries that make that sacrifice to bring down their emissions. So there's a lot of stuff happening. Well, you can see that the speeches, to be honest, good as they may be, is mostly a repeat of pledges, a repeat of promises, and Nigeria is saying enough, it's time for action. We don't want to come and just do the same thing that everybody else is doing, repeating the same speeches that we've been repeating for all these years, and there's very little progress made. So the president was in the hall, he waited, he was going to give his speech, he listened, and he decided perhaps that was not the time to give the speech. There were more pressing issues. There were other engagements that he needed to be involved in that would be more productive. So it's not about just giving fancy speeches, it's about the actions that you take. The president has met with King Charles, the president has done this e-buses thing that we're talking about. There have been so many meetings to do with financing, there have been so many meetings to do with carbon credits and so on and so forth. So those are more important. This is a platform where world leaders are here, international finance institutions are here, development finance institutions are here, and that's what the focus of Nigeria is on, not just giving a very colorful speech. If you're following closely, you'll find out that we have what we call the 4D initiative: democracy, development, demography, diaspora. And this touches on all four, because when you talk about democracy, you're talking about a representative government. Governments cannot really function if they're being threatened by climate change. It's a major thing, it's an issue that affects the entire planet. It causes instability, it causes conflict, because there's also the issue of migration, people moving to more verdant parts of the planet. So all of that is tied to that. Development, of course, this is what this climate change issue is all about. When we talk about loss and damage funds, when we talk about energy transition plans, they cannot be done. You can't switch from using petrol to using electric vehicles. You can't switch from gas-fired plants to solar and water and wind without having the requisite infrastructure to do that and the technology. So that's about development. When you talk about the diaspora, part of the reason why we have the migration and people leaving where they're from to other countries also has to do with some of these indirect pressures of climate change, of CO2 emissions, and the warming of the planet. So that is also linked. When you talk about demography, I don't need to say too much about that, because as the population increases, Nigeria is going to be 400 million in the year 2050. There's even increasing pressure on the available resources, on the two major rivers we have, Niger and Benue. Lake Chad is shrinking. That population needs to be able to survive. Well, there's so many ways of defining this thing. Developed countries, developing countries like Nigeria. You even have least developed countries, and Nigeria is certainly not a least developed country, so that's different. So the debate is around whether emerging markets, emerging countries should contribute or not. But any way you look at it, Nigeria qualifies to benefit.